Good morning, everyone. Thank you to my brother Abdi Said for ambushing me. I had no idea he was going to ask me to do this. We had, I think, a very rich discussion, a very animated and passionate discussion, which again goes to the spirit of the forum, where we've been allowed a very free and open dialogue in Lome once again. So thank you to everyone who's organized this. I think the key areas, one, the importance of strategic autonomy itself for Africa. That was pretty clear across the board. In fact, I even challenged our panelists to explain, and it was very clear that they were not talking about divorcing themselves from the world, but creating equitable interdependence with the rest of the world so that Africa can make its own decisions. Global fluidity creates new challenges, but it also creates opportunities that Africa and African leaders should capitalize on. Then there was a conversation, and I think perhaps the most important point that came out of the panel was the link between economic deprivation, poverty, inequality on the one hand, and insecurity, terrorism, and extremism on the other. And I think there seemed to be a consensus that unless the menace of poverty can be addressed in Africa, unless the deprivation and the development shortcomings can be addressed, perhaps security cannot be lasting and sustainable across the continent. Then there's no debate that Africa is very, very rich in resources and wealth. The question is whether the leadership can turn around the governance model to move from what many felt, I think, on the panel that was misgovernance to a model of good governance that can produce the results that have been promised again and again. One thing I find rather interesting, and two of the panelists yesterday spoke about this, Africa is actually ahead of much of the developing world in terms of agreeing to the policy prescriptions that are needed. If you look at the Africa Peace and Security Architecture, the Lome Charter, the Silencing the Guns, all of these are actually visions that have been agreed to by African leaders. The question is implementation. And how do we get to implementing these conventions and agreements? I think that's fundamentally where there may be a gap. And then finally, a conversation about the youth of Africa, the next generation. Africa is the most youthful continent. How do we combine the wisdom of the experienced with the energy and exuberance of the youth? I think that combination is absolutely critical. And of course, then we had the last session focusing on this issue. And finally, a suggestion which already I'm glad to say the Lome Peace and Security Forum has taken up is to convene the Forum of Forums. So there are many dialogues across Africa that are already delivering results. There are success stories within Africa. Africa doesn't need to go out and find success stories. The ones that have happened within Africa through dialogue, those are the ones to focus on and follow up. So I think that's essentially the spirit of the panel yesterday. Once again, I think one must continue recognizing how open and frank these conversations have been, which is a critical element of future success. Thank you very much.